Hey everyone, welcome to the product key meeting. We'll be reviewing data from March, and we'll also have a group conversation on the similar data in early May. So thank you all for joining. Let's move into questions. Craig, you had the first one.
Yes, so I was looking at Gila's comment in number 3 in the agenda. Just wanted to, and I tried to go through the issue, and I've been part of some of the conversations, but I'd love just to nail down how we're feeling about our action plan around, the GitLab.com data syncing issue, because we're a few days behind. So just a quick summary, I think would be good here.
I'm happy to provide what I know. Justin or Keenan, do y'all want to?
I can take a crack at it, Scott, if you want. So summary-wise, for those that haven't read the issue, the root cause of the problem right now is that our data, we replicate a lot of data from the production data store into the Snowflake data warehouse. That replication, it's a very large data set, right? Our production data is huge, and we've had, as many of you know, issues around GitLab.com availability driven by a lot of that database stability. So this is a cascading effect of that, right? So GitLab.com availability is probably the first order issue we need to make sure we address, but a downstream effect is that we're unable to replicate data and use it for analytics purposes. So, and one of the data team folks are on the call. As far as where we're at right now, the Postgres 12 upgrade is sort of the big milestone that the team's been working on, the infrastructure team. I believe that was delayed about a week or two. Someone might know better. But that's where we're behind right now. So once that's done, as far as I understand it, the replication work will pick back up, and we'll start to get data back in there. So that's like fixing the immediate problem. I think we also need to step back and look at the pipeline as a whole and understand what we might need to do in the future to sort of harden ourselves against potential issues again. Maybe that's part of sharding. Maybe there's other things we can explore to make sure that production data we rely on from an analytics perspective can be accessed more quickly, even if a replication issue arises. Is that a fair summary for those that have been closer to it?
Thanks, Justin.
Can someone on a technical level explain what the problem is? Because like we have database write issues, but I think our read replicas are all doing fine. And I think the data warehouse should only need one read replica to copy from. So I don't understand how that's related.
I can give you a high-level technical summary, but we'll have to go into details. So we have a primary, we have a replica, and then we have data team reading from the replica. The replica is backed up. That means it doesn't have the latest information from the primary. It's backed up by about 3.5 days or so. So it's stale and it's behind. This can often happen when you have a lot of load on your primary. So then the primary has to decide whether it's going to serve operational use cases or it's going to try to catch up the replica. So trade-offs can be made to say, catch up with the replica later, continue to serve the operational use cases first. That can create this data drift. And our data pipelines now have to understand that, okay, some tables are 10 days old, some tables are 3 days old. Can I really build on my dashboards? Probably not. So all my dashboards are 10 days old.
I've never heard of a replica that was behind in different timelines and different tables. Whether you use logical or kind of physical replication, I don't see how that can happen.
Okay, we can get more information from the right technical people.
And so I don't know the technical answer either, but I do know that like this is, for instance, Christopher gave me a heads up about this yesterday. This is his productivity metric, development department MR rate. And he's like, this chart is like 20 days behind. So I don't, and so yeah, I don't think what's been talked about so far is the root cause. So I think we need someone from the data team or the infrastructure team to determine like why is the data warehouse behind or inaccessible or something out of date. I know that from a people perspective, there is a dependency of the data engineering team that's within finance on our infrastructure department, and our infrastructure department has obviously been busy doing the PG12 upgrade and other things. But I think it's as simple as something's broken and they are unable to prioritize fixing it, and our data team is like, we can't do it. So there's been this long-standing thing of like, how do we reduce that dependency? How can we build the capabilities in the data team where they can be self-sufficient managing the infrastructure, versus right now I think they're stuck at a higher level. But like I said, we should get infrastructure or the data team or both to answer exactly or more precisely what's going on there.
Do need to get the infrastructure team involved here. And I don't know who just put this summary of it from Dennis, but it's a good summary talking about the end-to-end process and the lag situation. I think the other thing we need to talk about is that it's not, Anoop is trying to create a kind of a simplistic view of it, but it's actually very complex because of the different data areas. So it's not just one database, right? We're grabbing pieces of data because of the way the .com platform is structured. So I don't think we want to take this entire meeting up, but we can definitely dig into some of the root cause. And the reality is the replica is not keeping up to date to then have a data pipeline into the data warehouse. So that's what we have here. I think one of the big root causes, as Eric pointed out, was to get that upgraded for the Postgres, Postgres 12, which has been put to May 8th. And then we're going to see if we get some real improvements. And then I think there's some architectural designs that we need to dig into. So I know infrastructure and the data team are working hard to understand end-to-end the problem.
We have a bunch of replicas. All the other ones are up to date. Otherwise, you'd get still data all over GitLab.com. Why is this analytics replica? Did we make something special or something?
The replica is not up to date.
But there's a ton of other replicas that are up to date.
I can't answer that question. I do know that the replica that we pull from is not up to date.
Why don't while this meeting is going on, why don't I poke around on Slack and just ask some of the people involved, and this meeting can move on to some of the business questions. And if I get an answer in the next 20 minutes, I'll bring it back here so we have it. Or if not, I'll get it async and I'll push it over Slack so we know. Because without the right people, we're just going to keep guessing and probably won't move forward.
Cool. And cool. Thanks, Eric.
Sure.
Thank you, Eric. Craig had a second question.
Yeah, so on to the business question. So one of the key pillars in our operating plan is the security pillar, and it looks like we're doing really, really well. But I'd love to hear from the team on how they think their roadmap's going and progressing towards kind of the aspirations they set out during the planning process. And then I have a follow-up, which is the thing I was talking about at the top of the hour.
Yeah, so I would say we're making really good progress driving the maturity of Secure. In fact, we are in the process of doing the category maturity scoring for SaaS, and it's actually scoring just short of lovable. So we'll be moving it to complete here. I think by the end of this quarter, if not beginning of May. Dependency scanning is the other last part we were talking about a lot of investment in. That kind of got put on hold during the rapid actions, but the team is now back to working on it. They just started their category scoring, and we identified some areas we need to close up before we move it to complete. And then the last thing is last year we put container scanning on ice while we drove maturity of the other categories. We're actually seeing some adoption there again. And the team is with 14.0 cutting over to a new engine for that scanning, which is a lot more modern. It's going to give us a lot more capability.
So David, would you say that you're on pace of what you planned, or you feel like you're ahead, or do you feel like it sounds like you're doing exactly what you thought you would do, which is great?
Yeah, I'd say we're a little bit behind where we initially thought we would be at this point. That has to do with some of the rapid action type stuff over the last couple of months. we actually moved our entire container or our entire dependency scanning team to working on database optimizations for a couple of releases. So that's kind of slowed us down a little bit there. The last part is when we decided to put hiring on hold last year, we weren't done staffing some of the teams, so that's also slowed us down. But I will say it's a big credit to Todd and Wayne for being able to optimize within the teams to keep things still moving forward, despite having sometimes 2 or 3 developers on a team.
Awesome. Let's celebrate when you hit that lovable mark. I think it's going to be a huge milestone for us. It's great.
Yeah, I was planning on throwing a party for complete because that's been a journey. But yeah, we can save the party to lovable if you want.
No, 2 parties.
2 parties. Sid wants 2 parties. So good. Just one follow-up on the integration of the acquisitions. I saw that, and I think, let me get my details correct because the names are very similar. I saw that the Peach fuzzing API security is scheduled by the end of July, but the fuzzing API did not have a date. And I guess there was a dependency there. I just love more color on that and how that's going. And do you feel good about that?
Yeah, so I will say there's a little bit of confusion because API security is the name of the Peach product we acquired, and we're using it for 2 different purposes. The API fuzzing, I'll talk to Elran. We probably should move that to saying complete. So on the API fuzzing part, because that is fully integrated in, it's running in the pipeline. The second part, which is in the DAST row, that we are still ongoing doing integration. After, I want to say it was the February milestone, was where we considered API fuzzing done on integration. We started doing the work on the DAST side. And I checked with the team actually today, and we're on track for still the summertime for that to be fully integrated in.
Awesome.
Does that answer your question, Craig?
It does, yeah. I realized we hadn't checked in on the integrations in these meetings, even though it's reported on every time. So thanks for continuing to push that. I know it's really good, and it's a great integration is a skill and a capability that's the company's building, and it's great. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I will say we lucked out. The founders that came with those companies are highly talented. So I would say the Peach founder is probably operating at the level of like 3 developers. So he's definitely chugging along and making great progress.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for that. Sid, it looks like you have number 4.
Yeah, I think I answered my own question, but it's remarkable how much more conversion the company accounts have.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can make a case for the non-company accounts. So I'm going to put on the e-group agenda of Monday to stop signups with like free non-company email addresses, free email addresses. I think it's not a business we need to be in.
So I think one thing we should look into there is there's definitely kind of like I kind of think of it as like dark, like said as dark matter, it's like dark ARR of we get these engineers that sign up that use it for personal use, and they recommend it to their company, and that company then purchases. And we do see that in user interviews when we talk to signups, that they talk about their personal use and then recommending it to their company later on. I don't necessarily disagree with you that we should prioritize company signups. I definitely think we should, but I think we should leverage the data team and the product analysts and try and understand what that correlation is between personal users and getting companies to sign up, and if we can understand that at all.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I'll just remove it from the e-group agenda. And thanks for sharing this data.
And Sid, also the marketing team just made some adjustments to their lead scoring to talk about that capability as well. So it's good. I think there's good alignment around this problem and understanding of what's happening, and I think it's going to be a good optimization.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add, I think Sindhu's analysis is more focused on using company email. Our is slightly different. Is we kind of filter the data by when they sign up, they indicate I'm signing up for company use. So those are slightly different, but I have a data issue. We'll talk with marketing and finance to see which one is a better in terms of more sensitivity and also lower efforts to implement.
Yeah, one more thing I'd like to add is that when we actually tied the business email to ARR, we found that about 90% of the ARR is actually generated via business emails. So really makes a lot of sense to prioritize business emails. And if they do have personal emails and business emails, I think we're better served just requesting for their business emails. Just give us your business emails and we'll continue communicating there rather than encouraging the personal use emails as well. And then the pricing change, when we took our price up, that basically exacerbated the discrimination between the amount of ARR we got from our personal and business emails. So that was the other, I guess, economic shocker there.
Yeah, thanks. That's super helpful. And then Sam, what you might want to explore is yes, we depend on these people starting to use it personally, but they might very well have access to a business email.
Yeah, totally agree. I think Gila and I can partially take this on with the product analytics team and start digging into the relationship between the two.
Thanks.
Great. One other part of the operating plan I wanted to check in on. So Sid, are you done? Sorry, did you finish with that topic?
Yep.
Awesome, cool. So one of the other things that the operating plan talked about was product qualified leads, that concept. And I know this came up in the Compass meeting, but I thought I'd just check in here. And I know we are adding 2 resources within the growth team to focus on that, but I'd love to get a sense of how we're thinking about the timeline to start to do that and start feeding that to Salesforce.
Yeah, so those 2 resources are still in hire, but Sam and I, we have been thinking about the roadmap. So we added a PQL section into the growth handbook. We have some MVCs that's already live, but with the resources, we can expand on those. But we are already kind of making some efforts there. Sam, you can add more details.
Yeah, so we have some very light MVCs in the product that, it's not driving volume at this point. Once we get these 2 additional resources hired, ideally we would really start driving volume. In the coming milestones, my plan is to really start to work with the UX team to build a backlog for the PQL work so that as these people get hired, we can hit the ground running. And happy to share that as it gets built up with you.
That's awesome. Yeah, keep us in the loop on when those will flow. I know that part of the operating plan includes using that as a really good customer experience to help upsell them as well. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So I go ahead, Sid.
Right. Greg, I thought you were going to say something.
No, I was trying to catch myself up in the doc, but it looks like you have the next item, so you go ahead.
Cool. This is a very positive surprise to see the unique monthly active users growing 6% month over month. That's pretty extreme. Now, March was a bit of a longer month, but still 6%. That's a really good number. Actually, I'm surprised that it's outpacing the paid user growth. Does anybody have any idea of why this is growing so fast?
I guess I'll just share from looking at things like CMAU for the ops section. We had a general dip from November, December, January, and February. And I had assumed that was because of shortness of months and people not working various days. And that we also saw a significant spike in March that basically put us back on track to where we were from the fall. I don't know if that has been universally true across all of product, but that was certainly true in ops section usage.
Yeah, that was a very common pattern. I don't know how to explain why it grew faster than paid. But definitely there was a big ramp in usage in March pretty much across the board.
Yep, I see it now too. Thanks, Kenny. That's helpful.
And then there might be one more thing, which is the spam activity. I'm not 100% sure we are removing all the spam activity. And as we know, we saw a lot of spam activity in March, but we haven't quantified it and taken it out.
It helps. I see the biggest growth in the recorded self-managed, so I don't think it's a big contributor, but that's an important call out. Thanks.
So my last question, I've been trying to articulate this. Sorry, I was a little behind today, so I didn't have as much time to explore the product materials, and they're really, really good, and there's a lot of great depth in there. So thank you to the team. And I've been trying to articulate this question, so maybe, I don't think I did it justice, but I was really interested in the experiment, the growth experiment, where we know that as we invite users and we get more user engagement, that's really good for the user experience and really great for adoption, and then great for them converting to paid. And then I saw a note about how we're optimizing that flow from 20, I think it was 20 clicks to 10 clicks, which I think is great. And then the other thing I noted is that we started doing a hard email. I assume that means you're going to verify email as part of the process, which is really good because, you know, obviously with spam and things like that, it's good to do that. I guess I'm just trying to understand the learnings that the team had from that experiment. And then does that apply to any of the registration steps too, like when we verify email, because, you know, and things along those lines. So I guess that's my question. I hope that's a good question. I've been trying to grok the whole thing and think about the question, but that's kind of what I want to explore.
Yes, I can speak to specifically on the invite side. So when we turned on hard email confirmation, it broke some of the existing logic in understanding that someone was coming from an invite email. So what it caused was somebody to get an invite email, and instead of landing on sign up, they would actually land on sign in, and they would have to self-navigate to find their own way to sign up in order to complete that invitation process, accepting the invitation. So we quickly fixed that, and that's where we saw a big uptick in the accepted invite rate again. But then there's still just a lot of low-hanging fruit there in optimizing that flow. So right now, the user also has to go back to their email to confirm it, even though they accepted a link in their email. So we're so we have an open MR. We have an open MR right now that's fixing that. So we're just chipping away at it, and I'm really confident we can get the clicks down by at least 50%. So that should have a nice improvement on the invite experience. And then myself and the other growth PMs along with Gila are actively thinking about how can we kind of unify this sign up and onboarding experience and really get it as crisp as possible. And that I know that's something that Mike is thinking a lot about, and he's actively working on with his team. So I don't know if he wants to add anything there.
Yeah, I can jump in there, Sam. Thanks. There's also just in the actual new account flow some challenges with the hard email confirmation. So things like you confirm the email from a link in the email you receive, but then you land back on a sign-in page that's empty. So you've just entered all of this information. So some of the things we've been exploring is how can we remove some of the friction there? So can we, as a first pass, just fill in your email address so you don't have to type it in again? Just little things to remove all the clicks and friction right now, because yeah, it's 22 clicks for the invited team member. It's nearly as much as that for the sign up as well. So we explored things like a magic link auto logging you in there, but there's actually some security challenges with that. So we're really just trying to remove as much of that friction and the difficulty of getting signed up so they can get into the product and start experiencing the value. So there's going to be a number of changes we do over the next probably 2-3 milestones there.
Good. I think the focus on that friction, reducing that, is going to pay off in dividends. So it's a great thing. So keep us posted on that progress. That sounds like there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there as well. So
yeah, there is. And then even if you think about getting into the product and getting started, there's a whole bunch of friction there where we want to start removing aspects from the first mile flow, bringing them into like a dashboard where you log in, start to get some data collection there. The continuous onboarding work that Sam's team is doing, that could be the home for it. We could have jump off points into the different stages so that you can adopt more of the product. So we're thinking through a whole lot of stuff there that, you know, you'll start to see those changes hitting, but it's going to be a long road to complete it.
I want to add, Melissa has been collaborating with us as well. It's a group effort, and this is kind of a case because we're experiencing a high volume of spam. We're enhancing a lot of security measure, but every time we implement things like this, it will have a real business impact. So, like, we are collaborating with various teams trying to minimize those business impact.
Thank you all. We're at time. Eric, do you want to give a 1-minute update on the warehouse?
Yeah, so from conversations in Slack, for clarification, there isn't a dedicated replica of the GitLab.com database today for replication. It's reading off of the real replicas. There is some delay, some lag between the primary and the replicas, but as Sid indicated, if it was 3 or 20-day lag, like the application wouldn't work. That's not happening. There's a relatively small amount of lag that really doesn't affect the GitLab.com sort of experience. However, the process that the warehouse is using is like has zero tolerance of any lag. So it seems like it's just creating gaps in data. The moment there we cross some threshold and like no data is copied over for certain things like massive pulls, like CI builds and whatnot. So we've got sort of like a non-distributed systems tolerant process that's very naive. And for any myriad of reasons, that needs to be fixed and improved eventually anyway down the line. There is a short-term solution, and because we moved the PG12 upgrade out to May 8th, it looks like we may have somebody be able to look into it on Monday and just create a dedicated replica that won't have any lag and will kind of just work. It won't put pressure on GitLab.com because it will be delayed, but it will be instantaneously available to the warehouse. So that way the warehouse can continue to run this non-fault tolerant process and get what it needs. And then the charts like the one that I displayed that are 21 days out of date will be sort of like replenished. Long term, we're still going to have to develop a more tolerant process that the warehouse uses, because it can't be so brittle where the moment it can't talk to anything, it just flakes and zeroes out. It just doesn't record data. So short-term fix, maybe someone can do that Monday. Long-term fix, we'll still have to look into that process, because in any scenario, databases are up or down, or lag is introduced, or the network between two things will go down. So it has to be more fault tolerant. But we think we should be able to have a short-term solution that we could possibly have someone do in the Monday timeframe.
Awesome.
And
thanks.
And Steve and I have one later, so we'll do a little write-up and we'll share that doc around, just people understand current state, next steps. So it's clear to everybody, we're all on the same page.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric, for the follow-up during the meeting. Appreciate everybody